Hey everybody, this is Matthew Krause, and you are listening to the podcast Working Drummer. Today my interview is with drummer Pat McDonald. Pat is best known as the drummer for the legendary Charlie Daniels and has been touring and recording with Charlie for over 16 years. When Pat first moved to Nashville in the late 1990s, he was at the forefront of a budding community of rock and fusion drummers that were showcasing their styles in country music, and this approach to drumming has served Pat very well in the music business. Pat will be one of the many great drummers that you'll be able to see at the Nashville Drummers Jam 7, December 14th at the Exit Inn here in Nashville, which is a tribute to Alex Van Halen. As always, you can go to workingdrummer.net. You can find us on Twitter at working_drummer. We are on Instagram. We're on iTunes, where you can subscribe to the podcast and download episodes. You can find us on Facebook, where you can leave comments and like the page. Any of that stuff is really helpful. So here is Pat McDonald.
There was a big jazz club, and I ended up getting a job there when I was at Berkley, and a bunch of people played there. Gad did something there. Elvin played there. Tony and his band, and they were there for like 4 nights. So I got to see them every single night. And then on my night off, the manager let me have like the table right next to Tony's hi-hat. I sat from me to you from Tony and watched the whole show. But during the day when nobody was in there, his kit stayed set up. And I was like, fuck, I gotta do it. And I went in there and just kind of tapped around. They sounded like shit. Horrible.
Isn't that amazing?
And when he played them, it was fucking awesome. Gad's kit, the same way. Elvin's kit, same way. It's like, it's here. It's right here, man. I'm telling you, it ain't the gear. It's the hands. It doesn't matter who you are. You get a sound, you can take anything and it'll sound like you. So
I believe that, man. Because I worked at Forks for a couple years. I think it's where I first met you. And then I worked at Columbus Pro Percussion up in Ohio.
I went there one time. Bissonette did a clinic. First time I ever went there.
Okay. And, people would bring in beat-up kits and used kits or even out-of-tune kits right out of the box.
Right.
And that player would come in and sit down and just make them sing. Mm-hmm. And you're like, what? I didn't hear that when I hit him.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not even their sticks. You're right. It's right.
It's in your hands, just how you hit.
That's amazing, man. Well, man, thanks. Again, thanks for doing this. I think I saw you play with the Wooten brothers probably the year I moved to town in 2000 or 99.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Did you have like a purple Noble and Cooley?
I did. I actually sold that kit. It was a great kit, but I bought it years ago down in Florida. And there was some, I had a Gretsch kit. I had a really nice Gretsch kit, and I had a house gig, and the place that I was playing, leaving it there all the time, I'd heard, Gretsch is not going to make drums anymore. There's just rumors, and Gretsch isn't going to do it. And what happens if my Gretsch kit gets messed up? Yeah. So I started looking for another kit, but I wanted something that was the same sort of thin shells, die-cast hoops concept that Gretsch did.
Right.
And at that time, nobody else did it.
Right.
Tama Star Classics were just starting to happen. And nobody else was doing that. And I thought that was the key. That was the secret to the sound I liked. So I checked out Noble and Cooley and ended up buying them. And I had them for years. Used them on a bunch of stuff and loved them. But I sold them to a buddy of mine not long ago. It's just one of those kits that it's a shame. It was just stacked up in a corner. I never played it.
It's funny because in Columbus, that was the vibe. Hardcore Gretsch players were looking for something, they were in the exact same boat.
Yeah.
And they went to Noble and Cooley, and that kind of scratched that itch.
They were kind of the only people making that same, just going with thin maple shells and the die cast, which at that point I was a tech guy and was into, how many freaking threads are on the lugs and what ply of gumwood versus maple versus birch, which direction. I could tell you all that stuff. Today, if it's round and it's got a head on it, give me a key. Let's do it.
Well, man, tell me what's your. Are you off for the year? Are you guys done? What's
Not
your
quite.
schedule?
We have, but I actually was just before I came here. Was on the phone, and we have a iCal calendar that we share,
Yeah.
and dates for next year we're just they come in these waves. Like 10 or 12 dates just popped up. Oh, geez, okay, so next August we'll be here. We've got about maybe 6 or 8 more dates left until December. I think 13th is the last one.
Okay.
And then we're off until late February.
Do you guys do any Christmas shows or anything like that?
Not much.
Okay.
We have in the past, but we haven't in the last few years. Okay. And it's, Charlie's getting older, and his ability, like once we get through a year, he's just kind of like, okay, just a few more shows, and then I can go and shut down for a couple of months and recharge, it's rare that they drag him out, and once we're off for the winter, we're pretty much free to do what we want to do,
right,
for a couple months.
How many shows do you think you're doing a year?
We're hanging about 100 and probably 5.
Okay.
And then there's Opry dates kind of interspersed in there too.
Right,
I don't know if we really count those in there, but we do several Opry dates every year too. So
when you're looking at your year, you can predict pretty much. You can plan months ahead, but you have to be close by. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, there's stuff right now already. There's stuff booked into November of next year.
Wow.
But for the most part, I usually don't try to plan more than a month or 2 out, because a month you can generally count on they're not going to throw anything in there, and nothing's going to happen that last minute. Sometimes it does, but overall, that's the tough part of doing this is you just can't plan. It's not like, okay, it's January, we're going to save our money and take what we left saved from Christmas, and we're going to go to Hawaii in June. We're planning for it, and we're saving every penny so we can go to Hawaii. We know Hawaii's coming. With me, no way could you plan that.
Right.
No way.
Right.
You just have, because invariably, if it's a weekend in the summer, I'm busy.
Right. Or an Opry date could come up, or
that was exactly happened. I was going down to Florida to spend time with my daughter on Halloween, and we had Halloween night off, and we had the Friday off before that. And I thought, cool, I can go down and maybe I can even go trick or treating with her and blah blah blah, whatever. She turned out going to go to a Taylor Swift concert in Tampa, so she didn't trick or treat anyway. But I was thinking, yeah, this is great. And then boom, 2 Opry dates, Friday and Saturday, popped up in the middle of it. So here I got to sit in town for 3 days to wait to go play 3 songs at the Opry and then turn around. Now I can't go home because there's not enough time. It's kind of but it happens. That's just the nature of the biz.
But in between shows or in between blocks of time, what are you planning? How are you? Are you recharging? Are you planning? Trying to hook up with people for sessions or teaching or anything like that? Or how do you kind of spend your off time? Now,
with my situation with my daughter and that whole thing, most of it revolves around me traveling down to Florida to fulfill my visitation with her.
Yeah.
So I'm not really hustling the in-town stuff as much as I used to.
Yeah.
I still do. And there's, people will call and it's like, yeah, well, I'm not going to. When we're out on the road, a lot of the Nashville standard is you go out, let's say you leave Thursday night and you get back Sunday morning or Monday morning. So you're home Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Right.
Well, that's not really enough time for me to go and do anything in Florida. So I'll just stay in town. And if somebody calls and, hey, I've got a session on Tuesday, can you do it? I'm wide open. I got nothing. Right. Sure. I got a kit up here. Yeah. I got, backup stuff here as well as down there.
Yeah.
So I can do whatever, but I haven't really been hustling it as much. My focus has been the last couple of years has been trying to get a world wrapped around this going back and forth thing.
Yeah. How old's your daughter?
She's 8.
She's 8.
Yeah, awesome. 3rd grade.
Nice.
So
and very far down in Florida, southern or?
She's in Gulf Coast, just south of Tampa.
Oh, that's not bad.
Okay. Yeah, it's not too bad.
Okay, cool.
It's an easy flight, and the flights aren't generally too expensive. Depends on when you get them and how far out you book them. And the drive, you can do it. It's about an 11-hour drive.
Okay.
So,
borderline.
Yeah, it's an all-day thing. But
yeah,
the other day, I thought we were leaving on Wednesday night, and I hadn't planned to go home. And we played when we did the Opry on Halloween. And I talked to the keyboard player, and I said, we're leaving Wednesday, right? And he said, no, we leave till Thursday. And I'm like, well,
see ya.
I got to sit here Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Man, I'm going home. So I got up the next morning and just drove and spent 2 days down just doing stuff at the house and getting things fixed and moved and taken care of, and plumbing and electrical and all that garbage.
Oh my gosh!
Because I've had the house about a year, but there's a lot of stuff that needs to be done, and I just am not there.
Yeah.
This winter, I'll have time.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people in this thing, certainly on the outside of the business, you know as well as I do, that a lot of people, they see your name on television, they see you in a magazine, they see the artist you play with, you're on the CMAs, you're in the background, they see, hey, I know that guy, I know that. They think that those gigs come with a 7-figure check and a mansion, and they just don't at all.
Yeah.
So you have real life. I don't have a maid. I can't afford to pay somebody to take care of my yard. I get home and my lawn's 3 feet deep.
Yeah.
And I got to bush hog the thing to cut it to, and the neighbors are griping. It's like, man, I'm not here.
Yeah.
It's just one of those. It's not what everybody thinks it is, but.
Well, I want to get into more of the Charlie Daniels gig, but
okay.
But briefly, you've had this gig, man. It's been a solid thing for a long time.
16. This is 16 years.
16 years.
Yeah, going on 17.
Has there ever been a drummer that's been with him that long, or?
Come to think of it, I might be the longest guy now, because I think prior to me, I think Jack Gavin did it for, I want to say 13 or 14 years.
Yeah.
And then he left. That's how I got it, and I've been here for 16. Wow. So, and I don't know that, maybe Freddie Edwards, possibly. But I don't know the timeline on it. I don't think he was around, but he was there in the heyday, the 70s and late 70s, early 80s, and whatever.
And when did Charlie start?
Oh God, he's been doing it. The Charlie Daniels Band, I think he started in 70, maybe.
Oh my gosh.
He had a band called the Jaguars, way back, and I honestly. I don't know if it was 69 or 70, I think, when he really started doing it.
Yeah.
And then it did a couple of records. And then 74, they did Fire on the Mountain, which had South's Gonna Do It Again and all that. And that was kind of the first, Long Hair Country Boy was on that.
Right.
That was the first time that he got any like big worldwide press, other than Uneasy Rider, which was earlier than that. And I think that album, it was maybe called Honey in the Rock or something. That's way back. I was a kid. I mean, I wasn't even in elementary school at that point.
Wow.
So.
Does he pull from that stuff? I mean, do you
Some.
have to know? Okay.
We don't, he doesn't know it. So it's not like seriously, people ask, they come and ask for some obscure B cut off of, a record that he did in 1972. Hey, Charlie, you guys still do that song so-and-so? And he's like, man, I don't even remember how that goes. Gosh, I wish we could do it for you, but we just don't know it. He's real diplomatic about it. But people sometimes go, well, you wrote it. Shouldn't you have it on your middle Rolodex? It's like, man, I've written a bunch of stuff since then.
Yeah.
There's just not enough room to keep it all.
Sure.
But he will go back, like at the beginning of the year sometimes. In the off time, he'll go back and listen to the old records and go, that was a cool tune. Maybe we should dig that back out. Because real fans would go, man, they played this.
Right.
So we'll go back and learn some older stuff, and we have the standard stuff that we have to do, and then there's a list of probably 6 or 8 that are kind of, we know them enough to do them on call. So we don't do, like, Trudy is a big one that everybody seems to love, and we get a lot of requests for it, and we don't do it every night. But if somebody hits him in the meet and greet at the right time and goes, Charlie, you going to do Trudy tonight? He might. I don't know. Maybe I'll do it. We'll see. Yeah. And he'll get out on stage and just start it. And it's like, oh, we're doing Trudy tonight.
Yeah.
But we know it enough that we could just wing it.
Yeah.
There's several tunes like that. But he's got, 40-something albums.
I know.
I can't remember all that stuff.
It's almost like when McCartney plays, his set lists get passed around online.
Right.
Everyone goes through. Yeah. I see Jets on there, and all the standards are on there, and all that stuff. And it's like, oh, Venus and Mars. Wow, I can't believe or Girl. And you look for those little
ones that if you're a diehard fan and you know the tunes,
right.
Yeah.
And Charlie's been around for so long that he's going to have those fans.
Yeah.
The reason I ask is when you play for an artist, and your situation is, I think, a little bit unique within Nashville as far as working with an artist.
Yeah.
That you kind of have to know, depending on the artist, but if they have more than 3 or 4 records, albums, cuts, whatever, you know what I'm saying?
Recorded musical performances.
that you sometimes have to be prepared to know what they're going to pull out of an old recording and have it raring to go.
He kind of sticks to the stuff that he knows he wants to do. If he does pull one out, he will always give us a heads up.
Okay.
If he's thinking like one tune that he has called Carolina, I Remember You. And it's a ballad, and there's this big recitation thing at the beginning of it, and some just keyboard pads and stuff. And it's a real slow tune about him growing up in Carolina.
Yeah.
And whenever we play in Carolina, that's one that he'll pull us in the dressing room. You guys remember Carolina? You think we can get through it? Yeah, we can do it. Because it's home, and he wants to do it for those people. Yeah. But it's not something we're going to do if we're in Texas. Gotcha. So we may not do it. We may do it twice a year, if that. Right. So he always gives us you guys want to dust, just clean that one off and make sure you can get through it and keep it. Yeah, okay, yeah, we got it. We can do it. Yeah, and run the changes down. What happens in the bridge? Oh, that's right. It does this enough that we can get through it. Right. But he always gives us a heads up. Very rarely will he just wing something and have us standing there going, "Whoa, what are we playing?" We have done that once. It's funny that we did it. I remember we were in Valdosta, Georgia, and it was a patriotic thing that he had written about the war, about Desert Storm, whatever. And there was he got on a rant for a while about politicians being involved in making military decisions. We got these guys that are trained. You should. The title of the song, I think, was "Let Them Win or Bring Them Home." Just let them do. We've got them to do this job. Let them do the job, and it'll be over with. Mm-hmm. But we keep nitpicking it. Yeah. So he's very politically motivated now. Sure. Yeah. And he actually on stage he said, "I came up with this idea for this thing, and the guys have never heard it, and we're just going to play it."
Yeah.
And we all just sort of turned our ears on and kind of fumbled through it, and it became a song. And when it was done, we all went, "Wow, that's cool." And people were going, "Man, that new song you guys did?" It's yeah, that's the first time I heard it too. I'd never played it. Exactly. But he trusts everybody enough to know what we need to do. And we all created a simple little, running down a demo on a session. Just kind of the first time you kind of go, sounds like it's kind of this, and everybody knows just how much of the corners to hold up. Yep. And it gets done. Yeah. And then when you get done, you can polish it and go, yeah, how about if we change this and do that? But we played it live on stage.
There's 16 bars, and something's coming up now. And watch for the change.
That's the cool thing I tell people all the time about Nashville in comparison to about country in comparison to most everything else. Country is generally fairly simple. Harmonically, it's not real deep. We're not talking about Mahavishnu. You're not sitting in with a band that's playing stuff in 17, and if your ears are dialed in enough. 90% of the country music you hear, even the stuff that they call pop country now, it will telegraph to you where it's going. Mm-hmm. You get to those crossroads, musical crossroads, where you're going, okay, here comes the bridge, and if it goes to the minor 2, I guarantee you we're going to go here. And if it goes to the 1, we're going to go here. And you can just feel it. And in the space of a quarter note, you get to go, yep, we're going over here.
Right.
Because it's all mapped out for you because it's not real complex.
And as a drummer, when you switch to the ride cymbal, and maybe it's the wrong decision. You're thinking the ride would be great on the bridge, and then you go and it's not the bridge. It's still not going to mess it up. You're not the bass player playing the wrong.
Right. Bridge. Exactly. We can kind of color. We just grab another color and paint over what we just did. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Exactly.
So it's pretty simple that way. So it's not the Chicory Electric Band. You know what I mean? You can go downtown to Broadway and sit in and play. If you just turn your ears on and listen, the tunes will drag you through. 70% of your work will be done if your ears are good. Originally from St. Simon's Island, Georgia, down on the coast. There's a bunch of barrier islands between Savannah, Georgia, and Jacksonville, Florida.
Okay.
And St. Simon's is kind of the biggest, most populated one. That's my family was there. Everybody, my parents, grandparents, they've been there since the 40s.
Musical family or?
Nope.
No?
I'm the only one that plays anything.
Wow.
My mother loves music. She's a big music fan.
Yeah.
But she doesn't play anything. My brother, nothing, nobody in my family. I don't know why. I got bit by the bug, and I'm the only one that got it.
Yeah.
So.
Well, what was it? Was there something that happened when you were young that you're like, "Hey, drums, I gotta do this," or was it just music?
It's fun. It's funny. Probably the reason the full reason why I'm into it is probably because of my mother, because she's always been such a fan.
Yeah.
When we were in the car, the radio was always on. She just liked good songs. She just liked to sing along with them, even though she can't sing. Bless her heart. We were always around it, but. I remember vividly, I was talking to somebody about this the other day, when I was a little kid, and there was a St. Patrick's Day parade, and they had a fire truck, and they had, like clowns and guys dressed up like leprechauns or whatever, standing on top of the fire truck as it came down with a siren on, and they had bags of candy. Remember those peppermints, but they were green and white, not like Starlight Mints, the little hard,
yes, of
hard,
course, yeah.
but the green ones.
Yeah, yeah.
They were throwing those. They were going everywhere, all over the sidewalk, and kids were just scrambling around, picking up candy.
Yeah.
And I wanted so bad to go out and do it, and I sat in the car because the marching band was right behind them, and that boom, 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 that bass drum hitting you in the chest, I hated it. I wouldn't get out of the car. I did not like it at all. That big boomy. Really? I remember I was probably 4 or 5 years old, and I just hated the feeling that I did not like it in any way, shape, or form, and I actually sat kind of like, I wish I could get some candy, because I couldn't get out. I hated it. And then I ended up playing drums. Don't ask me why. No clue.
Controlling your demons.
Maybe. I don't know. I asked for toy guitars and I got a toy drum set when I was a kid. It was one of those Sears catalog paper, piece of junk. And I have pictures of me actually on Christmas Day standing in my living room, kind of standing up, banging on it, And I messed with it for a little while, and then it ended up in the attic. It was just, okay, whatever. And then one day, just, how kids are, you get to be 12 or 13, you start exploring, and I went up in the attic and kind of digging around and looking at all this old stuff.
Right.
And I saw those drums, and I was like, I should drag those back down.
Yeah.
And I pulled them back down and started messing with them, and at that point, I got bit. I have no idea why. I just really, really was like, God, drums. Everything became drums.
I think 12 and 13 is about, there's that point when your brain switches on. I'm seeing that with my 13-year-old right now.
Yeah. You find something that you just really get passionate about. You're like, this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then did you have a good band program in school or a teacher?
There was a band program in the middle school, and I actually, this is another kind of a silly little story, but you could only join band like, I think it was 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. So 6th grade is when you had the option to be in school band, when you could start choosing your own elective things you wanted to do. And I went, of course, I was like, I want to be in the band.
Yeah.
And the band director was he's sort of a flaky guy. And years later, I realized that my 12-year-old judgment was right, because he was kind of a loon. But he was going around the room the first day of band. And it was me, and there was 10 or 12, 15 people in there. And he was asking everybody, what do they want to play? I want to play clarinet. I want to play trumpet. I want to do this. And he got to the kid next to me, and we both had kind of sat by the drums because we both wanted to play drums. Yeah. There's only 2 of us. And he said, what do you want to play? And the kid said, well, I want to play drums. And he points to me. He said, what do you want to play? I said, I want to play drums. And he goes, well, we can't have a whole band full of drummers.
2 drummers?
Yeah. And I'm going, well, hell, it was just 2 of us, Nobody else has even mentioned drums. We're the only 2 guys in the whole room. But he made it like... And I just kind of went, I don't know, this guy scares me. There's something just kind of weird about him. And so I actually asked my mom. I was like, I was enjoying playing along to records on my own more than I was hauling a drum to school every day. You had those little student kits, with an acrylite and a stand and a pad and all that. And I had friends that did it, but I just didn't do it. But I did spend a lot of time playing along to records.
Yeah.
That was the big thing.
And what were you discovering? What were you playing along with?
Well, when it first started, all I had was my mom's records, which were the 70s, what we like to call wimp rock now. Dan Fogelberg, John Denver, the Eagles, Bread, America, that 70s folky rock stuff. She loved it. Sure. To this day, I watched the Eagles documentary the other day, and to this day I still go, dude, they did some great stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like, oh, that's old cornball 70s.
No.
There's a reason why they're who they are, because that shit was good.
Well, and some of those Eagles guys were producing Dan Fogelberg.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
They're on the same records and stuff.
So, when I really got into it, I don't know. I don't remember who turned me onto it, but it was Kiss. It was Peter Criss.
Wow.
I saw Kiss. I saw something about him, and it was like a comic book.
Of course.
For a 12-year-old kid, somebody breathing fire and spitting blood. It was a comic book come to life. Mm-hmm. And it was, that's the coolest thing ever. First record I ever bought was Kiss Destroyer. Bought it with my own money, and I still have the vinyl copy right now.
Nice.
I can take you to my house and show you where it is.
Oh, you didn't bring it with you?
No. I usually keep it in my pocket, but no, actually, no. Seriously, I mean, Kiss became the thing.
Yeah.
Big time, and that was when Mom was like, oh, that's weird and loud stuff. But that was when I discovered my own thing, and she just left me alone and let me do it. Held off going to college immedately after high school, and I thought, well, I'm going to do this band thing for a little while. I did it for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And then it petered out, So then I decided to go to college.
Okay.
One of the few people I think who, I'm going to go to college later, and then they end up, 40 years later, they're still welding,
Right.
And it's like, I never went to college. I actually did, but it was, I just wanted to play with that first for a little bit. So
I was going to say, because you mention it in your bio on your when I went to your website and I was looking up some stuff.
Yeah.
So I was just thinking there must be something significant about that. I mean, I know everybody's path is differently, and I don't know if there was more to it. The reason why you kind of put off college, or
it was just I was lucky that my parents didn't. And my grandparents didn't hassle me. They weren't like, oh no, you can't do that. You have to go. They just were kind of hands off. Like they knew enough after the middle school thing happened, and then getting into high school, and then getting into the high school band, being sort of behind and catching up, and then finding out in high school that there were 15 or 18 other guys in my hometown that were just like me. Mm-hmm. We were all about drums and cool guys that played drums. That's where I got turned on to Neil. That's where I got turned on to Vinny and Terry Bozzio and Modern Drummer. My first issue of Modern Drummer, you could not have found me in high school without a copy of Modern Drummer in my bag somewhere. That's like, always reading Modern Drummer. Yeah. I just soaking up everything I could get out of it. Because in a dinky little town like that, there was no information. My parents didn't know anything about drums. They didn't know who was cool.
Yeah.
My grandfather took me to see Buddy Rich one time, which was just freaking amazing.
Right.
Just boggled my mind.
That's awesome.
And he got a kick out of me just sitting there just going, like, oh my God, listen to that guy,
How old were you? Do you remember?
I was probably 13, 12 or 13.
Yeah.
He played in my hometown. Big man.
Do you remember that? I was 13 when I saw him.
Yeah.
And I racked my brain to try to remember what I experienced and what I heard.
Yeah.
And it's hard to remember.
It's so much information overload. It was like, I do remember, this is funny, John Hammond here in town.
Yeah.
Does a bunch of session work, and, John's a real successful drummer here. I remember this name because I found out later that this was him. The Valdosta State Jazz Band opened that show for Charlie. And they were really good because I was kind of in the school band and knew what the jazz band thing was about and looked up to those guys like they were a college jazz band. They were really good, much better than us. Mm-hmm. And John was the drummer. Wow. And at some point during the show, John had to take a solo, a little thing, whatever. Uh-huh. And I mean, he was way better than I was. And I'm going, man, this John Hammond guy, I don't know who he is, but God, he's really good. He's probably going to give Buddy a run for his money. And I've told John this story.
Yeah, that's great.
I ran into him at Forks, and we just giggled about it because it was like, I remember seeing him, and I was a little kid. I'm just 12, 13, 14 years old. And he played his butt off. I mean, he played great. Mm-hmm. And then Buddy came out. And it was like, oh, my God. Oh, you got to be kidding me. I didn't even know what to think.
Yeah.
It was so above my head. It was just amazingly, mind-bogglingly incredible.
Yeah.
But,
I think even if I saw him now.
Oh, I'd still
be like, what just happened?
Yeah. He was one of those kind of guys. Yeah.
Yeah. So even at 13, I'm just wondering. You had the similar experience.
Oh yeah.
Like, do you remember? Because I don't remember.
Yeah. I don't remember specific things. All I know is it was just like when I walked out of there, I just was like jaw on the floor, like, you got to be kidding me. And then of course that sends you into that, man, I got a lot of work to do if I want to be as good as him kind of thing. Which is never going to happen, but. You work at it. It gives you an inspiration on some level.
It's that combo of like, I give up and being motivated.
Yeah.
Like, I'm ready.
I know this can be done. If he can do it, I can do something, So if you take it the right way, that's definitely a big thing. But yeah, the band thing after high school was just being away from home, living with a bunch of guys on the road, having to take care of our own business, having to handle getting from place to place without a whole lot of help. And just playing cover tunes, just playing rock cover tunes. And back in those days, there was a scene for that. There were clubs all over. It was mostly Florida, Georgia, Alabama. Mm-hmm. There were clubs all over the state where you could play 5-6 nights a week, and there was a whole scene for that.
Right.
So
it was fortunate. At that age, your expenses aren't probably great.
Oh no, we ate bologna sandwiches, and we just enjoyed having fun and getting to play.
That's awesome.
But it was, I did that for a couple of years, and then. I got sick again and had to do chemo again and all that stuff. So once that happened, it was like, all right, well, let me get serious about this. But the cool thing about it was the fact that it was a chance to get to play other things that I hadn't been exposed to, because I was real into. This is what I like. I like Kiss, and then I got into high school and guys turned me on to Neil, and I like Rush, and I like Steve Smith with Journey, and I like Bozio, and I got turned on to Vinny a little bit. And these are the kind of guys that I like. The Gino Vanelli thing, Mark Craney, and Casey Sherrill and those guys, that was like the high school bag for me.
Right.
And so I was real into that kind of stuff. Okay. And then having to go out and play, honky tonk women and not jamming all your Neil Peart licks into it was a little, and I did it anyway. I listened back to some of that stuff and it's horrible.
Pat, it's only one cowbell.
Yeah, dude.
One cowbell.
Yeah, song. When you're a kid, man, you're trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
And I there's a lot of those. I can still think back to moments where I go, God, I must have been a nightmare for those guys, because I just didn't know.
We all go through it.
Yeah.
Well, what was your decision for school? Where did you end up going? I know you ended up at Berkley and studied with Chaffee.
I wanted to go to Berkeley, and I applied, and I basically just was truthful on the exam. I just didn't know anything about harmony and ear training and none of that. And I got turned down. Which I thought, well, it's Berkeley. I'm not going to, they're not going to let me in anyway. It was a long shot to get in. But at that time, it was like 86, and a bunch of my high school buddies had gone on to Georgia Southern.
Okay.
And they wanted me to come to Georgia Southern and march in the marching band, because we had all done marching band in high school. So I was into that. I really dug it, and still to this day love it. Kind of rekindled an interest in it lately. I'm really heavy, like big sticks and chopping out on a pad, trying to get my hands in shape.
Oh, wow.
But it's fun, and the stuff they're doing now is just.
I was going to say it's in '86.
Yeah. Oh no, there was no such thing as all the stuff they're doing now.
You had pinstripes on your.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, we did. But going to Georgia Southern, I went, and specifically, I knew that I was only going to go for about a year and just cram all the harmony and ear training I could get so that I could reapply to Berkeley.
Gotcha.
Because that was the whole goal of going there, was just like they're going, oh, you should think about what you're going to do for a career. Now, I know what I'm doing for a career. I just need this right now. And while I'm here, I'm going to march in marching band with these guys and have fun. Mm-hmm. But that really did, more than anything, that helped my reading chops. That was the best thing in the world for reading, because I didn't read very well at all.
Okay.
Because I missed the reading thing in middle school.
Okay.
And never really had to do it in high school.
Yeah.
And so I get to Georgia Southern, and they said, you should play snare. And I'm like, they handed me some music, and there was like 32-bar little audition thing. Mm-hmm. And it took me 6 hours to figure it out. Mm. And then I went in and did it, and they went, yeah. And they said, what about this? And they handed me some stuff to sight read, and I'm like, guys, I can't read like that.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, here, this figure goes like this. Oh, you mean this? Oh, okay. Yeah. So they kind of went, you got hands, you just got to get the reading thing, but we'll get you through it. You can do it. We need a guy in the snare line. So every day getting handed that music every day, man, I mean, really, really took my reading from 0 to 10 fast.
Wow. And so 1 year there.
1 year there. And then, so then when I went to Berkeley, I was ready I already had the, a basis in reading from Georgia Southern. I had ear training and harmony classes that got me into Berkeley. They went, oh, yeah, you've got a 4.0 and all this. Yeah, come on up. Nice. So then I just transferred and went to Berkeley. And I did there year 87, 88, about 2 years.
Okay. So, how much time did you spend with Chaffee?
I studied with him for probably, I'd say 6-7 months.
Okay.
The last period, the last few months I was there, I was studying with him.
What was he dishing out at that time?
Man, he had kind of refined that whole patterns thing that he's got, that series of stuff. Mm-hmm. And I really wish now that I could go back, because I was a kid. I just was a dumb kid from Georgia, and I didn't know. I thought you went and talked to this world-renowned teacher, and he showed you what you had to do to be good. Yeah. And I didn't get that he was giving me a framework and going, take this home and do something with it. Show me what you got. Show me what you can come up with. Think of stuff. Trying to make you think. It wasn't so much about the execution of the technical stuff. Yeah. That was part of it. But how can you use this?
Interesting.
And I think he was still kind of, maybe not so much at that point, but was farming his students for directions, for concepts. Like, oh, I never thought about doing it that way. Yeah. Because he said, when he first did that stuff, and he had Vinny and Steve Smith and those guys studying with him, he had just come up with this real rough concept of the numbers and the sticking patterns and the linear stuff and all that. Yeah. But he really hadn't explored it, and he gave it to those guys, and they would come back every week and go, well, you could do this and you could do that, and he's going, whoa, what was that? What? And he's writing down the shit that Vinny was telling him. Yeah. So he kind of built, I think, built like his curriculum, so to speak, out of stuff that the feedback he had gotten from some of his more advanced guys. Yeah. And now he's refined that and polished it into a book and a system and the whole deal. Yeah. But it was, I learned a lot of stuff from that guy. I still think back, stuff that I do and things that happen, and just stuff still pops into my head, and I go, you know what, Chaffee was telling me this was how it was going to be. That's and amazing. I didn't know even enough to listen to him. Yeah, I mean, I was listening, but I didn't get it. It didn't soak in. I've always been
when you go through those formative years.
Yeah, and it's like, God, I could have done so much better if I'd known where the hell I was going. If I'd known I was going to come out over here, then I could have directed my stuff to be ready when I got out there. Yeah. And I didn't know. And it's frustrating as hell, because I look back and go, geez, man, I'm always the guy bringing up the rear. I am. I don't. Just conceptually, my head doesn't work that way.
I don't know. I think we all. I think a lot of times we think that about ourselves, but
I remember kids that were there. There's a guy. There's a drummer that's up in Boston or New Hampshire now. Was a friend of mine way back then, and I've rekindled a Facebook friendship with him. Just an absolutely, just stunningly good drummer. Mm-hmm. Technically, just a monstrous player. There's a guy named Steve Michaud. Mm-hmm. And Steve was a young kid when we were at Berkeley, and we'd all hang on the wall right by the mailboxes. There's this concrete wall that all the drummers sat and put their pads on, and we all practiced and showed each other licks and stuff. Yeah. And Steve would hang with us.
It's a great place to pick up girls.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, there's a lot of those there. So Steve would sit down, and he was younger than us. I was probably 21, maybe 22. Okay. And Steve was like 16. What? And he would sit down and go, yeah, this like really just wild, wide-eyed young kid, totally into it. Yeah. And he'd come in and he would say, yeah, I took a lesson with Gary, and he was showing me this thing and this, and we're all going, whoa, what was that? What are you doing? Wow. And he had this kind of, like, he assumed that all of us old guys, of course we already knew all that. Yeah. He was just telling us this exciting stuff he had just learned. Yeah. And we're all going, who is this kid, and how is he like absorbing this? It's taken me 5 years to get half as far as, what in the hell is going on here? Yeah. So Steve was one of those guys, those young kids that just had an insight for it. And I'd see those guys, and there was a ton of them at Berkeley like that. Mm-hmm. And I would look at it and go, wow, I'm just a dumbass. I just can't. If somebody shows me, I'm okay, but my brain doesn't work like figuring it out myself. It's just weird. I've always been that way.
It is frustrating that I think, man, I was young and I didn't really absorb all that information that now I think, oh man, I wish I paid more attention. And then you meet the young players that are absorbing it all. And
yeah.
Like, you little
Yeah, these kids that are thinking about how they're going to do their next step and what. I just went. Drums were just something I loved to do, and I didn't have a plan.
Well, man, listen, you have a reputation. I mean, you have since I've moved here 16 years ago, as having just an incredible facility for playing, very musical. I've seen you a couple times, worked with some artists that have opened up for Charlie Daniels, so I've seen you play. How do you go from, I'm the guy that brings up the rear, to, oh man, I just had to follow Pat McDonald, that's going to suck?
I don't know.
You know how many times I've heard that?
And people say that to me, and I'm going, dude, this is what I think. That in going back and sort of reliving the history of being here and whatever.
I mean, I guess I'm kind of forcing you to kind of connect the dots from 21 to now.
Just plain out ignorance, just not knowing any better, just playing everything I could play and taking every gig I could take and doing everything I could do and just trying to suss out all the stuff I had in my hands. Yeah. And I listened to a lot of guys, and I spent a lot of time listening to more chopsy sort of guys. I didn't I didn't discover the beauty of Jeff Porcaro and Jim Keltner and those, the groove guys, and I was more into the more notes and the busier the better it was. I said the Neil thing and Bozio and any of Zappa's guys and all that.
Sounds like you had a facility already. They were discovering that in college. You've got the hands, so there was something that maybe led you down that particular path.
That was just what everybody goes through a phase. If you get into music and you think it's cool, and then you start to really get inside it, and you go, man, if it's the more complicated and the more notes and the more odd times and the more over the general population's head this is, the hipper it is. Yep. And there's a whole world. There's the Dream Theater kind of thing that exists for those kind of kids. Yep. And I get it. And I still appreciate it. Yep. But I also appreciate, God, the beauty of just the simplest country shuffle too.
Right.
You just there's an art to all of it.
Yeah.
But it took me a while to get there. I did it the back way. But the connection between school and getting here in terms of that, there was a lot of stuff, a lot of notey crap that I worked on. Stylistically, listened to a lot of guys that played a lot of notey stuff. So when I came to town, there really wasn't. I don't know of too many guys that were out of that background. There were guys that came sort of at the same time I did. Jim Riley and I got here within 7 days of each other.
Okay.
Rich was here.
Yeah.
Northrop was here. There was a bunch of guys who had that kind of a little more of that kind of a background and weren't just diehard country guys coming to Nashville to take a shot.
Yeah.
They were fusion and rock guys who Nashville was now the place to be. Maybe I should go to Nashville. And luckily, I fell into a bunch of situations here where I was able to just play the way I played, but sort of lay it over the top of this. When I had the Blue Healers thing, I ended up playing with those guys, and we took old country tunes and turned them inside out, and that was just what we did it for fun, and people liked it, and it became a big thing, and then people expected it, and then I would go sit in on gigs, having played with them and taken solo breaks and whatever, and having worked on that in other genres of music. Now we're playing sort of a country thing. It's a fast train beat thing, and they want you to take a solo.
Yeah.
All right, so I took a solo. Well, I knew how to take a solo because I'd done it 1,000 times in other stuff.
Yeah. And
people in Nashville had never heard it or something. Oh my God, this guy can actually play a solo and it's in time and I can keep stomp my foot to it. And what the hell? And then that rep became, you got to hear this guy. And there were other guys doing that. And that really, I don't know that there were. I wasn't here, but I don't know that there were too many guys that did that. And I think for me, it was just out of sheer ignorance. I just figured I'd just play like I play, and it seemed to work out okay. There were probably purists in town going, who's this bonehead coming in here blowing a bunch of shit, all of these country tunes?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, that's what we do. We're having fun with it. I'm not doing it because I'm trying to work my way into the studio. I'm just getting gigs. Okay. And then younger kids would come, and they started to hear that there were guys in Nashville, and more of that became, it was okay. Yeah. As long as you kept that stuff in your quiver when you didn't need it.
Nice. Right.
And that's the thing. That's like if you played a tune where there was room to blow and you can blow, then blow.
Yeah, yeah.
There's no nobility in like hiding what you can do. If you can paint a beautiful picture using 100 colors, then use all 100 of them and make people go, wow. Nobody goes, well, it's good, but it's got 100 colors. If it only had 3 colors, it'd be better. That's bullshit. I'm sorry. It's what the final product is. What it is. Either you like it or you don't.
Yeah.
If you have tools in your box, pull them out, but only when you need them. And that was a tough thing for, I think still it's for young kids to learn, but my time in Nashville sort of
and it's
cemented
worked well.
that.
It's worked for
yeah.
you. It's worked for you.
It has.
One thing I'm remembering this, seeing you. I was touring with Billy Dean, and we opened up for you guys.
Who's freaking amazing, by the way.
He is
that
awesome.
guy.
What a great
God.
singer. It was in Ohio, and my dad lives there, so it was great. So he was able to hang with me, and we were watching you play, and so it was really fun. I noticed that you had some room to play and to flex and to pull stuff out of the
Oh, yeah.
with Charlie. But when you guys played Devil, you played it more straight than any other song I heard you play on that set, from what I can remember.
Yeah. Because that's what it needs. That's just, it's an iconic song. That's I think when you've reached some sort of level of musical maturity, when you understand, yes, I've got all this stuff in my pocket, but this particular piece of music doesn't need any of that. What that needs is this. And there's room. The advantage I have with Charlie, there's a couple things. First off, musically, he comes from a player's background. So it's not a do the gig like the record kind of thing, because we do the records. He doesn't use session guys on his records. He uses the band. Okay. So everything he's done since '97, I've played on.
Nice. Yeah.
Even though it's stuff that, fan club people are only really going to hear, and there's a few little things that have broken through some, but nothing as big as Devil. But that stuff is us playing. So we have the freedom to do what we want. He allows us to do it because he that's what he wants.
Yeah.
I remember vividly going to the very first rehearsal and having Jack Gavin live tapes. And I don't know everybody in the band. And I'm going, all right, well, let's run. We're going to do this tune. And all right, at the beginning of this, Jack does a fill where he goes, da-da-da-do-da-da-doom. Is that what you guys are used to hearing? I don't know that the bass player maybe he just knows when he hears da-da-da-da-da-da, that's when he comes in. Can he count? I don't know him, just met him.
Right.
So I'm sort of feeling my way through it. He goes, no, you're good. Just do whatever you want. So I counted off and we play. And another time, after 2 or 3 times like that, he stopped rehearsal. And this is honest to God, quote, he said, son, I hired you to play drums because I need somebody that plays drums and I don't know how to do it. And you do. As far as I'm concerned, you do whatever the hell you want to do and we'll follow you. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. Because I was in that headset of Nashville, do it like the record. You go play with Martina, you do what Eddie did on the record, period.
Right.
I don't want to hear da-da-da-da if it's not on the record. If you do it, you get the stink eye and a plane ticket. Yeah. On his gig, it was like, play drums. Yeah. Play whatever you want to play. So I have a lot of freedom. Musically, he gives you a lot of freedom to do that stuff as well. Yeah. So the combination of being that guy in town who's got the reputation, apparently, of being able to play a lot of fancy schmancy crap, and then doing gigs where I can do it, and then getting a gig like Charlie's where I can do it every day. Yeah. But he trusts that if we're doing Long Hair Country Boy, there's no room for all that stuff. Yeah. It's an old gut bucket bluesy kind of tune. Just lay it down. So I love the fact that there's tunes in the show where I don't do anything but boom, bop, boom, bop, the whole tune. Mm-hmm. Now, there may be a Latin tune that comes after this where we can go into fusion world and I can blow all my fusion chops, and that's fine. Mm-hmm. But if the fusion stuff needs it, the tune before it does it, what it needs is this.
Right. So you're given that freedom. So going back to my question about playing Devil, did that naturally occur, or right out of the bag you're like, this song has everything it needs?
There really wasn't. I didn't hear any place that it needed anything else. So that's probably what it was. You had 2 guys on that track too, because he had 2 drummers for a long time, and most of them are they're on the records. If you listen close, you can hear the parts. Yeah. So not only here's a guy that plays a lot of notes, and now he's in a band that has drummers. The drum tracks have 2 guys, so I can cover twice as much crap, and it'll work for the sound of the band. So I was fortunate in that sense too. Devil was one of those. I knew it, and it's the story. The thing is just keep a groove and go in the little sections where you can blow and get a little funkier. That's cool, but the main thing is make sure that storyline that's coming out of his mouth, that people can sing along to it and they get it, and there's no room to get in the way.
Gotcha.
It's a train beat thing.
Yeah.
That's all it is. If it's a train beat, that's all you need.
Right.
If he decided to extend the arrangement and let everybody take solo breaks or give everybody 4 bars to blow or something, then I could do it. But to that point, I don't never even think about it. You just play the song.
And that's what people want to hear.
Yeah.
Right. I get that.
Yeah.
When did you move to Nashville?
97.
97.
Yeah.
And can you connect the dots from your move to Charlie's gig? You worked with Tanya Tucker, is that right?
I did Tanya's gig. Well, when you had mentioned earlier, I don't know if we were recording on about the Wooten thing, about you seeing me playing with the Wootens.
Right, I saw you when my first year down here. I think it was 99 or 2000. I saw you with the Wooten brothers at 3rd and Lindsley.
Yeah. I used to sub that gig a pretty fair amount. Raymond Massey, who works at Pearl now, Raymond was kind of the guy.
Right.
And I hadn't been in town very long and went and saw him. And kind of walked in, and there was totally different than the country thing. It was R&B, old funk, and whatever. And I was like, oh, this is where I belong. I would say this I know, because I was doing club gigs down on Broadway, and they're calling the standard, Merle Haggard, George Jones, Tammy Wynette country tunes, and I didn't really grow up on that stuff, and I just had to shut my mouth and listen.
Yeah.
So I didn't know it, but the Wooten thing was like, oh yeah, Brick House, shit, you kidding me? Yeah. I got this.
Yeah.
So I would go and hang out, and I ended up meeting Raymond, and he asked me one night if I want to sit in. I said sure, and I played a couple tunes, and Reggie liked it, and Joe Wooten was playing, and Rudy was still there, Rock Williams, all those guys that did that gig for so long, they all liked it, and then Reggie got my number and started calling me when Raymond said, "I've got to go out with Tanya this weekend. This week I'm not going to be here." Reggie would call me. He had 2 or 3 guys he would call, and he would call me every once in a while and go, "Hey, can you come down and do the gig Wednesday?"
Yeah,
sure, and I go down and do the gig. So that's probably what was happening when you came in. Yeah. That was much more to me like, okay, I don't have to think on this one. I know this stuff. Just follow that guy and play these old tunes that you know.
Yes.
So it was much more comfortable. When Raymond got the gig at Pearl and he had to stop touring with Tanya, he knew me from that, and he recommended to Tanya's guys, you should let Pat do it. And then I went out, and with Tanya's thing, you never really got the gig. You just went out and did a weekend, and then you did another weekend, and you just kept doing it until they said she doesn't want you anymore. So I ended up making about 9 months with her. Yeah. And then they decided to change,
Sounds like a girlfriend I used to.
They had Johnny Rabb did it for a while, and she didn't like Johnny for some reason. And then I did it for about 9 months, and everything was great. And then one day she didn't like me, and then they hired Johnny back, and then she thought Johnny was the greatest thing in the world. And it was like Johnny and I still talk about it and go, well, that's weird, but that's what it is.
Right.
She just changed her mind like she changed her clothes. So whatever.
Every 9 months? What?
Yeah, exactly. So from that, I ended up still doing the Blue Healers thing. That ended up leading to a house gig at this place called the Starlight Club out on Dickerson Road. And I did that for about a year and a half. And it was like a kind of Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, whatever. It was a 4 or 5 night a week house gig, a pretty good house gig. And it was all pop stuff. It wasn't a bunch of country. It was all blues and R&B stuff. So I would go out and do that. Well, Dennis Gully was the bass player, band leader in that band. And Dennis worked at Johnny Neal's studio. Johnny, keyboard player. Okay. Played with the Allman Brothers, blind guy.
Right, okay.
Johnny has a studio, but of course he can't work the boards because he can't see.
Okay.
But he can produce. Yeah. But Dennis was like his button pusher guy. Okay. And Taz, Charlie's piano player for 40 years, did his first little solo project at Johnny's studio. And they got a guy that was one of Taz's buddies, and the guy apparently wasn't cutting it. And Dennis called me one day and said, "Hey man, we're kind of in a bind. We're way behind. This guy's not pulling his weight. Can you come over here and bring a kit and finish this record for me?"
Yeah.
Yeah. So I put a kit in the truck and went over and got him back on track and got it done. And Taz thought it was great. And when I left, I thought, well, that's cool, because I knew who Taz was from listening to Charlie as a kid.
Yeah.
So I remember just kind of walking out going, wow, I just played on Charlie's keyboard player's solo record. That's awesome,
Yeah.
Back to my gig.
Right. Right.
And then 2 weeks after that, Jack Gavin left, and Taz called me and said, "Jack just quit. You want to do the gig?" And I was like, "Sure." And he sent me material, and I learned it and went over and auditioned. And 16 years later, I'm still here. Never in a million years did I think when I moved to Nashville that that's what I'd end up doing.
Right.
I just wanted to play drums. Again, that goes back to what I was saying before. Ignorance. I don't know. I don't have a plan. Just play. I just kept playing, and one thing led to another, and I've just played.
Yeah.
So,
can I ask you about your health?
Sure.
I didn't know a lot of. You've mentioned a couple times chemo and things like that.
Yeah.
And you mentioned it that you had something early, like before college, even.
Yeah. I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Okay.
And I about 2-3 months out of high school.
Wow.
Graduated high school, and the end of that summer, I found a lump on my neck, and they checked it out, and they took some of it out, and they said, "Yeah, it's cancer." So we did radiation.
Yeah.
And they zapped me and knocked it out for a couple of years. That's while I was doing Caruso, the rock band.
Yeah.
Then when that band when I left that band, I had found another lump, like it had come back. So I knew I had to take some time off to get treated, whatever. So then I went and did chemo in 85.
Okay.
85, 86. And then that's when I was like recovering from chemo. I got real serious about applying, and that next fall went to Georgia Southern, the Berkley thing, so forth. So after that, I was cancer-free for 21, 22 years.
Wow.
And then in 07, I started having some pain in my back. I couldn't figure out what it was. And we went and finally figured it out, that I had another type of lymphoma, which is apparently now fairly common if you're a long-term survivor. Okay. The stuff that they gave me when I was 17 was pretty heavy poison, which potentially caused what came back when I was 45.
Oh, wow.
So then I had chemo again in 07 while I was with Charlie.
Yeah.
And now I'm 07, we're going on November. What's today?
The 11th November.
So a week, November 17th, 18th will be 8 years.
8 years.
Wow. I didn't even think about that.
Nice.
So yeah, another week.
Yeah,
I'll be 8 years clean again. So it's just something every once in a while I got to deal with, I guess. Now getting older, a lot of things are falling apart based on that. I'm having issues things have to be fixed. Like I told you earlier,
right.
The hip, the titanium hip, the chemo, the last time all the drugs sort of ate that up, and I had that done.
Oh, wow.
But it's fine. I'm good.
And how are you, how is it affecting your touring schedule, your playing?
Doesn't really have, it's just getting old, I'm not 20 anymore. Things are sore,
I know.
But I think that's just because I'm old. It doesn't really have much of an effect. I don't have to do anything different. I don't have to, it would be great if I was a little more meticulous about really taking care of myself, but it's hard to do, man. It's really hard to do on the road.
Without medical issues to do. Well, I remember when I was still at Forks, probably 12, 13 years ago, and you came in and you had a cast on your foot.
Yeah.
Was it your right foot or your left?
It was my left foot.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Luckily.
I stepped in a hole. Just broke my ankle on the road.
Yeah.
Duh.
Do you think that was do you think that your body was compromised in some way because of the chemo, or do you think that?
No, that was just stupid. Anybody that would have stepped in that hole would have done the same thing.
I think you were heading to a Taco Bell. I remember.
I was going to a Waffle House. Believe it or not.
That was your first mistake.
There was. That was it. It was weird. There was a grass field, and it had a curb, like a concrete curb.
Yeah.
Just running through the middle of the field. Like that. Maybe this used to be where the road was, but they moved it, and the grass had grown and whatever. Uh-huh. And there was a hole, but they had mowed the grass, and it was flat.
Yeah.
So it looked like normal height grass.
Right.
And I just stepped over that curb, and when I stepped down, my ankle just rolled, and I heard it pop. And I thought, okay, I'll shake it off. And after 5 or 10 minutes, I was like, damn, this really hurts. And went to the emergency room, and it was just the end of that bone. I just cracked it.
They say Waffle House is bad for your health.
Yeah, it was. That was it. I was good because that was all there was. I was in like Missouri or something, and there was a hotel. There was nothing to eat anywhere else but Waffle House. I thought, well, I'll go to Waffle House. Yeah, and didn't make it. So yeah, I did a couple shows with an air cast on, and
oh my gosh,
it's funny. I got it back on the bus. After we'd all gone in the hotel. We'd done our things during the day. Crew had gone over, set everything up. Get back in the bus to go to the gig, and guys are going, "What the hell happened to you?" And I'm like, "Man, I stepped in a hole right there. And I broke my ankle." I'm like, "Jeez!" But luckily, it was a hi-hat foot. So, I could just raise my leg straight up and down and use the weight of my leg to close a hi-hat, so that was fine. But double bass stuff was out of the question for a couple of months.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. That's not going to happen.
That's amazing. I want to ask you about your website. You have a list of things called concepts.
Yeah.
And it's great. I'll quickly run down. You've got blogs that you've written, personal skills, soloing, versatility, groove, on the road, life away. There's a blog, which is an article for Modern Drummer, which is cool. And then you have the story of the session from hell, which I spent my breakfast reading and just sitting there with my mouth hanging open going, that's awesome.
Unbelievable. It was, it's on there in a nutshell. I think
you've got to go. What's your website called?
Drumskull.com.
Drumskull.com. Yeah. If you go to these, where the concepts are listed, and you go to that and read that. But if you want to mention it in a nutshell, but it is a pretty amazing story.
It was funny. It was one of those where I got always being concerned with making sure that you do and say the right thing so that you can help fill your calendar. Be the guy that everybody wants to call. Don't be a dick. Don't be don't be a pain in the butt. Don't be that guy that people don't want to call because nobody wants to be around you. Do the right thing, say the right thing, learn to play the game.
Yeah.
And I've always been real concerned with that. And I'm not the type of person to go off. Mm-hmm. But this guy pushed it to the point where I can tell you right now, I tell people this all the time. Some people are hotheads, and I'll get mad, but I can control how I react to it. But there have been a few times in my life where, like, somebody's pissed me off enough that I just popped them in the freaking mouth. Mm-hmm. And then when it was done, I kind of went, holy crap, I just hit that guy.
Who is that person?
I didn't do that, but I know that there's a point where I just don't, I'm not responsible for what happens beyond this. And it's way up there. You got to push me hard to get there. And this guy was pushing, that's as close as I ever came to it. But I told him, I was like, look, I'm not your guy. Pay me for what I've done and I'll leave. Get another guy. I'm not your guy. And I've never done that, ever.
Well, at the end of the story, you're like, you're still working. Everybody's, everybody involved in Nashville was still working. This guy that came in, you've never heard from him again. And as far as
came in, acted like an ass and left.
Yeah. And who knows what he's doing now?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
That's amazing. All the guys that were involved in the session, we're all still around. We're all still friends.
Exactly.
We're all still working.
Right.
So it didn't affect any of us. So now that's sort of confirmation that what we did was, in anything, you can only take so much.
Right.
Well,
again, I think if you have a chance, go check that. Anybody that's listening, go check that story out. It's pretty amazing.
Jazz World and LA's whatever LA is, but this Nashville's where the real guys are now. Like all of them, They used to be the sort of redheaded stepchild of the drum industry, and now everybody's going, wait a minute, Nashville's got real dudes, like real dudes, a lot of them.
Nashville Drummer Jam. It's been going on for some time. We've got the 7th one coming up in about a month. How many of these have you done? Because I saw you.
I think the only one. I know that I did. If I remember right, weren't the first couple the Jerry Gasco like a benefit thing?
Yes.
Okay, I did those.
Okay.
One was a couple of plain King's X tunes. Then they did a Jeff Porcaro one, which I missed, and then Bonham.
Yeah,
I did the Bonham ones. I did 2 Jerry. I've done all but one, I guess.
Bonham, and then then Neil was
the Neil one, and then the Stuart Copeland.
Okay,
and then and now this one.
Cool. Have you seen? It's been interesting to see it grow.
Oh yeah,
in popularity.
Yeah,
But what do you think it's done to the community in general? Or how has it helped the drumming community?
I think for everybody in Nashville, with the advent of internet, the fact that you can put these videos out on YouTube, and Tom and David and those guys do such a phenomenal job of really pushing it where people that may not normally know what's going on in Nashville, suddenly there's a buzz about all these guys in Nashville.
Yeah.
And they really, really have done a phenomenal job of pushing it out there and getting people involved, getting it visible to some kid that's in Denver, doesn't know anything about it, but he can go, man, all these guys that do all these country gigs, and they all know how to play Neil Peart tunes, and they all get together and they play. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's really cool. And the coolest thing about it to me is there's so many varied guys from so many different backgrounds, but we all have the same influences.
Yeah.
And when if you're involved in it, I guess being in on the inside's a little different than being on the outside watching it. But when you're involved in it, it's amazing how fired up everybody is about it. Like, dude, as soon as we finish the Stuart Copeland one, I mean, they were passing around ballots backstage like, who do you want to be the next one? And everybody was voting.
Right.
And which is why we've got the one we have now, which I haven't said. I don't know if you
can say it. It's revealed.
Alex Van Halen.
Yeah.
I voted as soon as I saw his name. I was like, oh, Alex. There's just, you could get 100 guys. We could do this thing for 3 days. There's so much material. There's so much stuff. And everybody loves freaking Alex, man.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody comes, now when you hear guys play drums in Nashville, they're not old school. The majority are not old school country guys. They're younger guys who grew up playing rock. And that's what those gigs are now.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
Rich playing Al Dean's gig, dude, that's like Bon Jovi. You know, it's a arms over your head rock gig.
Yeah.
And Al is one of the freaking kingpins of that, man. All of us grew up watching him.
Yeah. Well, what was your discovery of Van Halen or Alex?
Actually, the first band that I was ever in, we didn't do any Van Halen tunes, but the singer had on a Van Halen shirt from the first tour, Van Halen 1. Yeah. And I saw this Van Halen. I think it was a picture with Alex had that silver kit with the light up, had the mallets on fire or something.
Okay.
And I was like, what is that? And he said, Van Halen, man, they're great. Yeah. And then over just little bit by little bit, I ran into guys who somebody had the cassette player, and I was like, what is that? Oh, it's Van Halen. And then the more I listened, the more I thought they were great, and they just kind of had that quintessential American rock band thing. It wasn't a British band who came over here and showed us how it's supposed to be done. These are hometown guys.
Right.
And it was the rock party thing, the 80s excess, that whole thing. And then they did these records. Eddie was a monster guitar player, and he became this iconic hero, and everybody would listen to it for that.
Right.
But if you listen underneath what was going on, like the harmony thing and the pocket and the sound, dude, there's nobody to me today, nobody.
Yeah.
That one freaking backbeat, whop, and that's Alex Van Halen.
Right.
He has the most identifiable sound, the way he hits, the sound of his kit, the stuff he plays. It's no denying it's him.
Yeah.
And you don't see many guys like that anymore. You just it's kind of, there's a genericness to all the pop music that you go, it could be this guy, it could be that guy. I don't really know. With Al,
Yeah.
You just freaking know.
Can you pinpoint something about that gives him that thumbprint?
The two things that stick out to me more than anything is he was one of the first guys I heard that kind of, in a modern sense, sort of did that Ringo thing, riding on a crash cymbal, where he's got those big crash cymbals that just created that big wash. Instead of ding, 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 ding behind it, there was that washy thing. That's one thing I noticed. And of course, the biggest thing is that freaking snare sound.
Yes.
Just that thick, sounds like a 2x4, 8 inches thick, just whop. It's got this mushy, meaty kind of thwack to it. I remember actually doing some of my first recordings and taping up a snare drum to try to get that sound. I just wanted it so bad because I loved it. And it's, when you hear those records, you hear that thing, those big rock riffs, big guitar riffs, and just that whop, man, it just occupies this, 70% of the mix is this just giant snare drum in the middle of it.
Sonic space.
Yeah, dude, it's brilliant. There's nobody that's got a more identifiable signature to me than he does.
Is there anything that you take away that you find, hey, this is kind of an Alex thing I'm doing on my gig.
Oh yeah, God, man. I mean, when I was a kid, first learning how to play and playing two bass drums and stuff.
Yeah.
He does a lot of really, really hip stuff with two bass drums.
Okay.
And can make it work in a pop tune and can do it. Not necessarily. Some of them are the Hot for Teacher thing where you have the whole tunes built around it, and others are just fills or just ideas or little things. Mm-hmm. But all his stuff is real. It's different. It doesn't seem to be. That's what always jumped out to me. It doesn't seem to be like the standard just booga 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 drum stuff. There's always something on top of it. Hot for Teacher was a cool double bass shuffle, but that backwards ding 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 ding.
Oh, right.
That was so weird. When I heard it, I'm like, what the hell is he doing?
Yeah.
But it's perfect. It falls in your hands great, and it works, and it makes that tune, that freaking bell of that ride cymbal is another giant part of that track.
Yeah.
It's got to be there. If you did anything else, it just wouldn't be the same groove, you know? So all of those kind of things in conjunction with still the fact that he's got these phenomenal tunes that they do, that his brother writes, these tracks, these big giant riffs and, this singable melodies, and he gets to play drums behind them. Dude's got the best gig in the world, and nobody could do it but him.
I know, that's the thing.
Yeah.
And he's got the name, Yeah,
of course, it helps. I've said it a bunch. I think there's two things about those guys that to me, years later listening to him, I think that Eddie got a lot of press way back in the day in the Guitar Hero days because he was one of the first guys to popularize that whole hammer-ons and that stuff, and everybody in the 80s started doing it because he was just a visionary in that sense. One of the things he's overlooked for is his rhythm stuff. The riffs, the stuff underneath that. Okay. When there's a vocal going on, the stuff he plays, that guy is just one of the best there's ever been. Right. And I listen more to that now than the Wheatley stuff.
Right.
That's cool, but just give me the meat. And God. And then the other thing is, I really think Alex is one of the most underrated, overshadowed guys that there's ever been. Because that band, anytime you say Van Halen, people go immediately Eddie Van Halen. Right. Because he was such an iconic guitar player. Yeah. But you step back and look underneath and look what his brother's doing behind him. Dude, that guy's the real deal. I mean, everything I've ever heard. And every record that they do, it comes out, I don't care who's singing on it. Yeah. It's the rhythm, the background of that band is those guys. And he does some freaking amazing stuff.
It's like Zeppelin. You need every single one of those.
Exactly.
To make
it's just not going to be. It's just not going to be the same. And they did it with different singers, and they were able to work different. Right. A different thing out of it. The party rock stuff with Dave, and a little more thoughtful and musical oriented stuff with Sammy. And they've done a bunch of different stuff and whatever. But still, the cornerstone is the two of them. They're the only two guys in the world. There's so many tunes that they have. I know you can agree with me on this. There's so many tunes that they do where the tune starts out and there's some sort of a riff and there's some sort of a thing playing and you're going, where the hell is one? And then all of a sudden, boom, and you go, oh, there it is. And they're the only two people on the planet that can hear where it is prior to the main big downbeat. It drives me nuts.
I think what's that song right now where there's the keyboard riff?
Yep. It sounds backwards, yeah. It
sounds backwards and depends on what band you're playing with.
Yeah.
And the keyboard player.
Yep.
It's like, do you know where one is?
Yeah, it is. It's funny, but there's so many tunes that they have that are like that. Yeah. They just start out with the two of them playing, and it's like, I have no Panama. Panama did it for years. I don't know where one is. All I just know is it goes ding 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 ding. Okay, there's one. Because at Hot for Teacher was one. For years, I heard it backwards. Oh, yeah. I still hear it kind of. If I let my ear go there, I'll hear it backwards. But it works. They make it work.
Some guys are talking about what song they're going to play.
Yeah.
Some guys are not. For a long time, it was a secret who this tribute was going to be. But the cat's out of the bag. It's going to be Alex Van Halen. But some guys are kind of holding on to what song they're going to play. So you got to come out December 14th and hear.
Okay.
And some guys are like, no, I'm playing this song. It's going to be great. Blah blah blah. Do you want to tell?
Mine's going to be. If everybody's holding on to it, I'll just hold on to it. But mine's not a big. It's kind of an album cut.
Okay.
But it's great, and it's a Dave era tune. It's an earlier one.
All right.
So I'll give you it's off the second album.
All right.
And that's all I'm going to give you.
Okay.
No, it's not that big of a deal, but everybody will find out. There's going to be a lot. I think the majority of the ones that everybody's picking, for the most part, are the early era Dave stuff. I think it's more. I think kind of more that way.
Yeah, yeah. And do you have a favorite record or favorite song or anything like that throughout?
Man, I got a lot. It's funny. It depends on the era. It depends on what the time of the band. There's so many. I listen to it so much. That was one of the things, like when they said, okay, what song do you want to do? And I started going through and I was like, God, that's a good, that one would be cool too.
Yeah.
And I had like 6 or 8 tunes. I had to narrow it down, maybe I'll do this, maybe I'll do that. But the one that really stuck out at me was the one that I'm going to do. And it was like, just because it's kind of cool. Yeah. It's just kind of hip. Favorite wise, man, there's tons. I personally thought that the last record they did with Sammy, Balance, was a monster record. Just production-wise, sound-wise, it was gigantic.
Yeah.
It did have some hits on it, but it wasn't near like some of the other ones. Mm-hmm. Some of those other Sammy ones, like 5150, well, it's some great tunes, some monster tunes on it.
Yeah.
If you listen to it side by side to some of the later stuff, and even some of the Dave stuff, it's like, it's just real squished, and there's not a whole lot of level.
Interesting. Maybe this is the time, the era.
It could have been. I don't know.
Style of production.
Yeah. But the tunes are still great.
Yeah.
Man, Van Halen,
maybe it's the mood you're in. You're going to pick up.
Yeah. I mean, I will put on a record, and I really like the For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge record. Okay. That's a big one. As far as tunes go, it's a simple tune. It was a big hit. You just mentioned it. I think that's just a genius piece of work is Right Now.
Yeah.
Because the way that Al plays on the verses, there's that one thing he does that's just so stupid and it's so perfect. Where Sammy's like, where he says like, don't want to wait till tomorrow, and the grooves, God, till tomorrow. Stop, this big open sizzly hi-hat for like a whole quarter note, and that's all there is. Mm-hmm. And he does it every time in the verse, and it just, every time it gets to that, I go, that is so freaking cool.
That's awesome.
It's little stuff like that. It's those little things. Yeah, the Hot for Teacher thing, it's great.
Yeah.
But the little subtle things are, and besides that, just where he puts the backbeat, the thickness of it, and he just lays it just right where it ought to be.
Yeah.
It's a great band. Fucking great band.
It's going to be a good show. And December 14th.
Yep.
The Exit in Nashville. And Pat, I appreciate it, man. Thank you
No problem.
much.
Thank you, buddy. I appreciate you letting me do it.
All right.
Cool.
So there's Pat McDonald, everyone. That was awesome. I really enjoyed that conversation. A couple things that we touched upon. If you're at this point in the interview, you probably already heard it, but there was a couple things that he talked about on his website, drumskull.com. The concepts. That's a cool thing to go. I know I talked about it in the interview, but you've got to check that out. Drumskull.com, drumskull.com. You've got to read that article, The Gig from Hell. It's very entertaining. Also, there's a quote I've posted about just being able to, if you have an opportunity to showcase your chops, just do it. And I think that's been Pat's approach. And he talks about, hey, I was just ignorant. I didn't know that you didn't blow chops over these country songs. And he just did it, and it worked well for him. Want to thank Mike Jackson for his extra help. He's making this sound good, and we put in some extra time to finish up 3 more videos for the Nashville Drummers Jam that's coming up December 14th at the Exit In. So Mike's helped me finish those. They're on our YouTube page. You can see some interviews talking about that, the tribute to Alex Van Halen that Pat is involved with. So that's going to be great here in Nashville. Also want to just mention another quote. I've got a great message from a local drummer, Nick Amoroso, I believe is how you say his name. He wrote to me a couple weeks ago, I just wanted to thank you for the Working Drummer podcast. I can tell it's a labor of love for you, and I've learned a hell of a lot from all of them. Hope all is well. That was cool. that reinforcement, that interaction is super helpful, everyone. And Nick, thanks for posting that. So again, hope to see you December 14th here in Nashville. Otherwise, thanks for listening. Thanks for the support. And keep in touch, and I hope to see you around. Thanks. Bye-bye.